It isn't just a rabbit hole shell, it's actually a destination. Today, it is time for me to actually tackle the movie theater lot, and I've been kind of putting it off because I knew at the back of my mind that it was going to be a much bigger project than just simply decorating some streetscaping just outside of the rabbit hole. And I'll explain why in just a minute. Now, for those of you just discovering this video, discovering my channel, my name is Michael, and I want to welcome you to Sovereign Gaming in Life Sims, the YouTube channel where I build worlds, lots, and share my thoughts on video games in the life simulation gaming space. If you're new to this channel, like I am continuing to build out the custom Sims 3 world that I have created. It is in fact the world of SimCity, and today's project is all about this movie theater. And if you aren't familiar with the Sims 3 Late Night, then you won't recognize that the shell is actually comes directly from that expansion pack. I have always planned the different lots and the different uses of each of the lots before I exported the world, so I knew exactly where I wanted the movie theater to sit. And so I've always had it in my mind that it was always going to be the late night movie theater version of the shell building. And the reason for that is that I really wanted to add on to the skyline, and I also had a couple of ideas of my own. For me, it would just be too easy to just drop in the rabbit hole shell and then, do a little bit of streetscaping and then just kind of call the lot finished. It just doesn't feel like it integrates interestingly enough with the surrounding landscape. And of course, because we are in the downtown core, it is going to be surrounded by more skyscrapers and all of that. I forget which building sits directly behind the movie theater here, but right beside it, as you'll see it at several angles, it is the business tower that I had placed a couple of episodes back. So yeah, behind the movie theater is going to be yet another skyscraper building, or at least another skyscraper shell building. I have yet to actually build that one out, and I am going to be completely honest, I forget which one it is. So we'll just have to kind of play it by ear when that episode releases. But yeah, my whole thing with dropping in these shell buildings and these rabbit hole buildings, and you guys would have seen this with my previous builds as well, is that one thing that kind of bothers me is not making it into an actual place or an actual destination. And to me, the movie theater presents a really great opportunity. And the first opportunity that you'll immediately see is that I actually continue to build out a little vintage theater, so to speak, that takes those themes from the 20s jazz era. It borrows a lot of items. In fact, it uses exclusively all of the items from the Cinema Plum Bob lot from the Sims 3 store, and that was done intentionally and on purpose. I kind of wanted to create this lot to sort of be a destination where you have this nice little older vintage theater right beside the renovated and reinvented movie theater that would show all of the current movies or new releases and all of that. And that was something that was very important for me to try to denote here. I wanted to use a lot for that older Cinema Plum Bob, for those older items there. And, I just wanted to make this lot actually be more of a destination than it actually is. In the Sims 3 Late Night, the movie theater rabbit hole itself does actually host some events, if I remember correctly. It has a whole entire theater inside, I would assume, so you can watch plays or symphonies and all that. This is also the rabbit hole building where you can join the music career in. So to me, that was very important to just kind of explore a little bit as part of the theme for building out the rest of the lots, the rest of the buildings here. And so as you will see on screen here, and where we will get to it towards the end, I actually try to build some sort of a conservatory, so that if you have Sims that just don't have the space in their house or in their apartment for a drum set, for example, then they can just visit this slot and actually, use that ticket machine to to purchase or, quote unquote, rent one of the instruments so that they can practice on. So it helps to add like an additional function to the slot. Aside from just like watching movies, it's actually a place where Sims can come and they can skill up any of their musical skills. So we'll see that towards the end there, and I'll just try to explain my vision a little more further there. But first, if this brick wall is kind of scaring you with all of these posters, and if it's just not looking like it's making any sense, don't worry. I do end up going back to pretty much delete it and restart. So it was one of those things where I saved the game and I actually walked away from the project for a day, and then I came back and I was like, this is actually pretty hideous. So I'm very glad that I actually ended up changing those posters and all that. And that's something that I really wanted to try and emulate in this build, is some sort of a more urbanized area, an area where you have some of those illegal posters just kind of like glued onto the buildings. And yeah, I wanted to show that it was more in use, and I wouldn't necessarily say run down, but certainly like an active place in the downtown SimCity core. And so yeah, that's kind of where the idea of where these posters came from, is just, placing them on the side of a wall, having them seemingly placed in a way that makes them look a little more disorganized, a little more messy, just to represent that more active urban area. And posters on brick also look pretty nice as well, in my opinion, like when trying to show that there is an active urban area within this building. Now, when it came to like the other buildings in the downtown core, so being the grocery store, the spa, and also the business and science buildings, I never really had like an opportunity to show like an activated urban area, and I wasn't really playing a lot with those themes because I always knew that those themes wouldn't exactly be present within those lots. Speaking of which, the grocery lot is going to be something that I revisit and edit. I actually, I've again taken some time away from it, and I really don't like how it turned out in terms of like the townhouses that were built on the side. So I might actually use that editing opportunity as a way to introduce more activated urban themes into play there. So I'll just kind of cross that bridge when I get there in terms of an edit. And yes, it does suggest that like an edit episode is on the horizon, and it might very well be. But for the other lots, like the science building and also the business tower lot, I didn't like the idea of, placing posters on those really beautiful platforms. And I really wanted both of those lots to be really clean in terms of like in terms of like the lines and the way that the light would hit it. I didn't want, activated urban. I didn't want more urban themes applied there. I really wanted it to be more to be represented more like a heritage site. Like those platforms would have been there for ages, and with with the way that the city goes and how it needed to grow, they decided to build some towers on top of those platforms. But we're not talking about those lots today. Like that's really not the focus. The focus is really back on the movie theater here. And so if these urban themes seem a little out of place, you'd be right in assuming that, because I really need to play around with more of those urban themes in some of the future builds. It's just that it happens that the spot building that I needed to do for the downtown SimCity core was for buildings that I never planned on giving more activated urban decorative like set dressing for. So yeah, that was kind of my thought process there, is just to activate, to add in more of those urban themes just to the side of the theater there. I feel like the Plum Bob Cinema lot that came from the Sims 3 store was actually very well done. I have only recently purchased it, and I've been playing around a little bit with the different unique items that came with it. Like some of the premium content that was included with it was, of course, like the big movie theater screen, but then there was also the ticketing machines, which still aren't working for me. So that kind of sucks, but I figured that this might just be an isolated incident where it's just not working for me, and it might actually work for other players. So I haven't I haven't decided to get rid of it or uninstall and reinstall. Like, trust me, I tried troubleshooting it and it just doesn't want to work for me. So I've put in that option in there anyways. It's not like it completely takes away from the player experience if you don't have it working. You just might have to like teleport a sim somewhere, being the worst case scenario. But this is just one of those cases where I just feel like it's an isolated incident, in that it just won't work for me, but it probably works for other people. So I decided to keep it in there. But I do think that the Cinema Plum Bob lot is still very well made, and the themes that they decided to use for it, like making it that old Hollywood cinema and all that, was very well done. Like, it was well executed. I like the items for what they are. Again, they're very niche items, so I don't really see myself using them anywhere else but this lot here. But yeah, they paired very well with the Roaring Heights items, and I feel like I'm always like talking about Roaring Heights. It's probably my favorite world, and one day I'll do a review of all the Sims 3 worlds. As you'll see on screen, or what you'll eventually see, is you'll see me just kind of struggle with the Music Conservatory the Music Conservatory building. Now, I've mentioned it before, but like having like set dressing buildings or just like empty shell buildings where I just drop in some hidden room markers just kind of bothers me a little bit here and there. Again, I feel like there's a time and a place for them, but I overall don't love the idea of them. I'm very 50-50, even when taking them at face value, knowing that there is a time and a place to put them there. But anyways, one of my weaknesses when doing any of these urban builds, especially when it comes to mid-rise structures, is actually, falling into the trap of making it like a narrow rectangle. And you would have seen me do it with the cinema lot, just making it into a rectangle. But that's I felt that was a necessary evil that I wanted to put to build. And for this Music Conservatory here, I wanted to just like add a little more visual intrigue to it. Luckily, I was smart enough to figure out that I should just create some like little fake bump outs or fake pillars to make it look like it's actually adding some more dimension to the rectangle that you see right before your very eyes. And so yeah, I was really happy with the way that both of the buildings actually turned out at the end of this build. And another challenge that I really faced was dealing with the movie theater itself. Luckily, the rabbit holes are considered objects. It's not like one of those late night rabbit holes from like that you can build apartments inside of, where as soon as you place it, it's permanent. The movie theater was actually very cooperative, but I did kind of struggle with it a little bit, and you'll see me throughout the build like using the move objects cheat to move it in and out and all of that. It was also like another reason why both the conservatory and the vintage theater took the shapes and forms that they did. It was really because I wanted it to look nice right up against the late night movie theater skyscraper building. And so to do that, I figured that going simple was the best way. And in this case, like going simple was just making sure that there was like a flat wall. That probably doesn't make sense, but like a flat wall that it could be placed right up against. It was very tricky to get the placement of the movie theater, and it kind of sucks that I placed like the red carpet where I did, just because that took into a lot of consideration what I would have done, or sorry, that influenced a lot of where the placement of the movie theater object was. But yeah, I really love how everything turned out here. And I love how there's an additional function now added to the movie theater. You no longer have to disappear into the rabbit hole to learn an instrument. You can actually now take your sim and get them to go into the conservatory and, start practicing that skill that they just learned from that lesson that they got at the movie theater. Sure, it's a tad bit unrealistic because I would think that they would just have like musical instrument lessons right in the conservatory, but hey, this is kind of the game, and that was something that I just really had to play with, and I wasn't too mad at it. I didn't mind creating a separate building just for that cause alone. And I also even decided to throw in a little bit of a recording studio there, like a fake one. You can still sing karaoke in it, but but yeah, it's a lot that offers a lot of functions, to say the very least. For the actual music conservatory lot, I wanted it to kind of look like, a private music school of some sort, like private enough that the lessons are expensive, but you get the skills that you need, and it's not something that's so far out of reach from someone that lives in the starter neighborhood, for example. Of course, you can't really pay for actual music lessons unless clicking on the movie theater rabbit hole, but that was kind of the idea that I had with the conservatory that I just decided to place at the back of the lot here. And I was really happy with the way that it turned out. I even decided to use the staircase objects from the abandoned mansion lot. Again, it's from the Sims 3 store. I love that object a lot because with those stairs, it just kind of helps to add in a lot more personality. I believe I used them. In fact, I'm pretty certain. In fact, I do remember using them. Look at that journey there. I remember using them for the library build that I did way back when, and I was very happy with the way that they turned out. It helps to make things look a lot more grander, and I decided to use them a little differently this time because instead of just placing the objects, and I also use them, by the way, for the for the Old Town French penthouse build. That was another time that I used it and really loved it. But yeah, those stairs I love, and this time I decided to use them differently in that I just wanted to have the actual stair right up against the wall with the object just placed right beside it. Fortunately, it caused a lot of problems when trying to relocate the movie theater, and as you'll see on screen, you'll see me place it back into its position and then having to replace it. And what really ended up happening is that I would try to place objects and it would say that it's conflicting with something, or I wanted to build a wall and it'd say that it's conflicting with the actual movie theater itself. So that was where a bit of that struggle came from, and that's why I decided to border the placement of the movie theater lot with that carpet that I know that a lot of Sims creators use when needing to block out some floor space and all of that. So that's kind of where it all led to, is just being able to do that. Another thing that I wanted to mention, and I'm not too sure if I mentioned it in the graveyard build yet or if I forgot to mention it, but we've got a couple of more spot builds to go. And so what that means is just that I'm doing some spot builds just to make sure that the world is functional, so that when you guys actually do get the Sims 3 SimCity world, that you have some lots that are available to download if you so choose to, if you don't want to build out your own world. And then the lots that you will have available to you will of course be like the entire Old Town and Harbor neighborhood, but it's also going to include like these spot builds as well for you to download separately from the actual world itself. And I've been doing this whole spot building thing just so that you can so that the player can perform pretty much any function that they need to. And that included like putting in some rabbit holes. I've got more rabbit hole builds coming up that are independent of this. But yeah, I just wanted to do these spot builds for that purpose, and to actually allow players to download the world and the lots separately that they need. Just so that they're able to send their students to jobs, and just so that there's like some lots for a starter neighborhood that they don't want to build out themselves. So there's a couple of options there. The good news here is just that when it comes to the spot builds, we are nearing to the end. I think I might have been premature in saying that in the last episode, but we are indeed nearing to the end here, because I had completely forgotten at the time that I still needed to build a school. So we are going to finally, in the next episode, make our way over to the Blue Water Village suburb and build out a school, which I think you guys will really enjoy and you'll really like, and you'll just kind of get a glimpse into the direction that I want to take the Blue Water Village neighborhood suburb. And yeah, I'm very excited for that build. And then after that, it's just really going to be a couple of the starter homes in the Bridgeview starter neighborhood. And after that, like, the world should be nearing its readiness to be published and ready for download and all that for you guys. And then once I'm done those last two spot builds there, I am just going to switch gears, and we're going to come back here because there's this nice big green gap in the middle of the downtown core that I want to fill out here. And then I'll, of course, like, release more lots and all of that as I complete different neighborhoods. So I won't release, I won't keep up with it with each build. I'll just release them all at once a neighborhood has been completed. So that's kind of the game plan going forward here with these different speed builds. And yeah, I'm very excited to see how this is all going to shape up. I know that I've just been dying to get that green gap filled. I've been absolutely dying to like actually build some real mid-rises and real townhouses and row houses and whatnot. So I'm very excited for all of those building projects on the horizon here. But yeah, right now these spot builds have to come together first, and my goal with these spot builds and with these rabbit hole lots is just to really try my best to make them integrate with the city as best as I possibly can. We are now nearing towards the end of the episode. I just have to finish up the conservatory here and put in some of the hidden room markers for the upper levels. Again, like, I'm not a huge fan of shell buildings and creating set dressing, so to speak, but if I can add like a function or two on the bottom levels, then I feel a ton better about it. I know I've kind of had this weird little relationship with it throughout like a weird relationship with the with empty shell buildings and set dressing and all of that, like throughout the entire series, but I'm really okay with the way that this turned out, and when I can add an additional function to it, then I feel much better about it. Maybe I'm just overthinking it, really. But yeah, again, I love how the conservatory just kind of turned out. I love how both of these buildings, both of these mid-rise structures are like different heights. I really wanted to make it look as dense as I possibly can, and in this case, in The Sims 3, the floor building limit is about 5 stories tall if you're starting from the ground level and not on a foundation, whereas if you're on a foundation, your limit is 4 stories tall, which, you know, I wanted something a little taller just to try to match the movie theater object as best as I possibly could. But yeah, I'm really happy with the way everything turned out. The conservatory turned out lovely. And even though the recording studio, well, it requires a little bit of imagination for players to really enjoy, I suppose, but I really enjoy how that ended up looking, and I even changed the color of the lights in there just to try to convey that it is indeed like a different portion of it. realistically, I don't think that a recording studio would have even made it into like a conservatory that offers music lessons, and I am pretty sure that the soundproofing for the actual music rooms would not cut it for for folks that are actually recording music. But I'm just kind of playing the game here a little bit more. I'm sure that like I could have done a better job with the recording studio and just like placed it on the 3rd floor, for example, or the like 3rd or 4th floor, but I really just didn't want to overthink this one too much. I was just I felt that it was doing everything that it needed to do in terms of denoting like what you can do in the conservatory. But yeah, that's gonna about do it for today's episode. If the tour isn't playing, then feel free to stick around for the tour. I have some good shots there. I even do some nighttime shots as well, just because that skyline is starting to build out now. And like I mentioned before, I cannot wait until I am done with all of the spot builds, because because the city's just really gonna start to look better and better. But anyways, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. If you enjoyed this episode, if you've been enjoying this series, then feel free to like this video and consider subscribing if you haven't already. I just want to take another minute here just to say thank you so much for watching, and that I hope you have yourself a wonderful day.